Bulls Gold is delivered to you via the Barroom Network, now in its 7th year of providing podcasts about Chicago sports, movies, and more. Make sure to subscribe to the Barroom Network for free and easy downloads of its programming, and visit its merchandising store at deepdishtees.com to purchase t-shirts, hoodies, and mugs. Now, on with the show.
Welcome to Bulls Gold here on the Barroom Network. I'm Edward Schuler, joined as always by Salim Sudawala. Salim, how you doing today?
Hey Ed, I'm doing good. It is finally a long weekend this year. I almost actually forgot that it was going to be a long weekend. I realized during work, like on Tuesday, I looked at the calendar. It's like, oh, it's the last week of May. Oh, sweet. We have Memorial Day coming up. I don't have to work next Monday. So that was it was a nice surprise for me, because losing track of time and everything like that happens often. So that was fun. And then obviously last night game, we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording with the Celtics and the Heat. Another phenomenal game by Jimmy Butler, future Hall of Famer Jimmy Butler, as I like to call him. So that was a really fun game. Playoffs has been, interesting, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping it's going to be Miami versus the Warriors, but yeah, we'll see how that turns out. How have you been?
Yo, I've been good. Like you said, the holiday has snuck up a little bit, and it's kind of funny because the NBA draft is sneaking up on us too. We're less than a month out from the NBA draft. The NBA draft is on June 23rd, so it's going to be here before you know it. Like, probably a week and some change after the NBA finals end. So basketball is never stopping at this point. We got the finals coming up. We got the NBA draft. Then we're going to have free agency. So there's a lot to get into coming up. And there's a bunch of rumors out there as well, like we were talking about before we started recording. Zach LaVine seems to be a pretty hot topic, depending on the rumor. We've heard everything from Dallas to LeVar Ball saying he's gonna leave and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that's starting to pile up, and Bulls fans, I think some Bulls fans are becoming a little antsy about what could possibly happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been saying that this is basically clutch sports doing their thing to make sure the market is right for Zach, and to make sure the market is, competitive for Zach, and to make sure that the ownership, who is known to be cheap, not cheap out, just offer him the 5-year max. And when you talk about max players in this league, obviously there's always nuance involved in the conversation of what a max player is. Is Zach a max player like the way guys like like Giannis screwing up his last name, so I'm just gonna say Giannis. And tongue tied there. Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, all those guys? No, obviously not. But like, you look at the player that he is. You look at the NBA economics in general. You look at guys like Devin Booker. Look at Bradley Beal. Like Jamal Murray, all these type of players. And it's like, yeah, Zach is a max player compared to those guys. And that's what those guys are getting. They're also getting the max. So, I mean, it's about making sure you keep your all-star, making sure the reputation of this franchise continues to get it better. And it's up to AK and Mark Eversley to continue to improve this team and find a way. Obviously, if you can't be a contender, just find a way to continuously get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach LaVine is, we know he's not in that same tier as the guys you mentioned, but that's just not the criteria for being worth a max contract in today's NBA. If only those type of players were worth the max, then deals would be a lot tougher going forward. But I really don't think there's much to think about on the Bulls end, at least for what Zach is going to get. He's getting a max from everyone who offers it to him. The Bulls, whether it's some team outside of the Bulls, he's going to get a max deal one way or another. It's just the Bulls can offer for most. So we'll get into a little bit more with Zach LaVine a little bit later, but we do want to start with the Dallas Mavericks, actually. And unfortunately, they were eliminated a few days ago by the Golden State Warriors in a 4-1 series in the Western Conference Finals. But Luka Doncic, one of our favorites, me and Salim both love Luka. He lit the playoffs on fire, and he showed the type of ceiling that everyone is just falling in love with. And really, the sky is the limit right now, I think, for the Dallas Mavericks moving forward. So who better than to bring in to talk about the Dallas Mavericks and some NBA draft? And of course, we're going to get into a little bit of Bulls stuff later as well, but we've had him on Bulls Go before. He is an NBA draft analyst for the Locked On Network. You can follow him on Twitter at Mavs Draft. He knows his stuff. One of the best draft followers you're going to find on Twitter. Rich Stammen. Rich, thank you for joining us here on Bulls Go, man.
Hey, appreciate the kind introduction. That was very nice. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah. It's always it's nice having you on. You give a lot of great insight, and you don't get too high and low with your analysis. So it's always good to get an outside. Like, I always love getting outside perspective about not only various stuff about the draft, like obviously that's your expertise, but like just always outside perspective on the Bulls too. And you're definitely one of our favorites.
Yeah, because we're always in our like Bulls bubble with stuff, and even though we think we have good opinions about the Bulls, but it's always good to get like that outsider's perspective to see if maybe we're crazy about something or not. But we're looking forward to talking to you about some different topics, and especially the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic, who I don't think anyone really expected Dallas to get as far as they did, right? Like, but the fact that they did is just a testament to what they're building right now with Luka. I mean, they have a good supporting cast. The trade that they made at the trade deadline with to get Spencer Dinwiddie, Bertans, like that helped a lot to really kind of transform the makeup of a team. And Jalen Brunson has been like a draft steal from where he went, and he's just been incredible. So he's been a really good running mate for Doncic. So, Rich, what did you think of the Mavericks' run in this postseason? Like, did it surprise you? And what do you make of how that impacts the team going forward in terms of how they can build around Luka?
Yeah, I think if you ask most people, given how Luka strained his calf at game 82, I think most of us would have been pretty surprised to see them even come out of the first round back in April. And they advanced, they beat the title favorites in the Suns. And I mean, yeah, they lost in 5 to the Warriors, but I think just getting out of the first round for the first time in 11 years was such a win. And they were playing with house money against Phoenix, and they still kept advancing. I think it was a really good stepping stone. The next thing for the front office is making sure that you're not the new Atlanta Hawks, where the Hawks last year went to the Eastern Conference Finals and were an 8 seed. Granted, I think it's a little bit harder to do with Luka. I think he's just that much better than Trae Young, with all due respect. It's not a knock at Trae. I just think Luka is the top 3 to 5 player in the league, and it's going to be harder to drop to 8. The difference, though, is also this is a new front office. This was year 1 of their building a team, and they really only got to make one major move outside of signing Reggie Bullock, which is trading for Spencer Dinwiddie and Donis Bertans to cut up that Porzingis contract. So there's still going to be a lot of changes to be made, which is why I'm optimistic it won't be another Atlanta Hawks situation.
So how do the Mavs do that going into the offseason? Obviously, Jalen Brunson is a big name for the Mavericks as far as the free agent's concerned. He showed a lot in the playoffs. Like, I was surprised at some of the things that he was doing, as even offensively, just having some of these monster scoring games, just kind of carrying the offense in general as a playmaker too. In that first round where Luka was kind of in and out of the lineup. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how much he gets on the open market. Outside of Zach LaVine, there's not a lot of big names this free agency. And obviously then after you keep Brunson, there's ways to find like, is he a second? Is he a three? I probably look at more of like a third guy on a like a contender. Like how do you find that second guy, or do you have to do something where you find a couple of threes, if you will, to team up with Luka, and that could be good enough to have them be a contender?
Yeah, I think it actually they're fine. I think with Dinwiddie and Brunson for now, at least. I think that's a sustainable solution. I think Brunson a little bit more than Dinwiddie long term, but ultimately Dinwiddie is a good third option. The problem is for them is they don't have any front court playmakers. They have zero players outside of Luka that are taller than 6'5" that can create their own shot in any capacity. And when you're limited to just guards that can do that, you're probably not going to win the title. You look at just about every other team in the playoffs right now has somebody 6'6" or taller that's a creator one way or another. And you need that as a star. You need somebody with size that can also create. And I should say there's another player in addition to the star that's not the main star, because obviously like Jason Tatum is the star, but Jimmy Butler is the star in Miami, but he also has Bam Adebayo, who's an underrated creator, Kyle Lowry there to complement him. So I think whether he's the second, third, even fourth option, I think getting a front court playmaker actually would do a lot for Luka.
And Porzingis was supposed to be that guy. Like, I think when they got Porzingis, everyone was having flashbacks of, we got the Steve Nash Dirk vibes going again, like round two. But Porzingis' tenure in Dallas wasn't what everyone thought it could be. Why didn't that work out like, everyone in Dallas thought it could?
There's a couple things. The first 2 years, I don't think Porzingis and Carlisle ever really got along. I think there was always kind of some erupted. I can't think of the right word, but some stuff just never clicked with Luka and Carlisle, and I think it trickled down. Ultimately, that's why I was okay with the change. It didn't really matter who it was addition by subtraction. But obviously, Jason Kidd's done some good stuff. But with Porzingis, the injuries, I think it probably took a toll, especially come this year when, Luka was playing through an ankle sprain, I think is what it was, or neck strain, both of them really. Meanwhile, Porzingis had a sore toe and missed a week. And it's like that stuff kind of matters. You look at, I feel like we've heard these kinds of things with Anthony Davis in the past where he's just so injury prone. He's like, I can't fight through the pain. Mm. And that stuff I think takes a toll. On top of that, you look at how his defense outside of some light rim protection hasn't been that good in a couple years. And ultimately Porzingis was predictable as a playmaker. I think that's ultimately to answer your question, why it didn't work out. He would do the same crossovers into post ups and do the same post spins. It was very predictable to defend. He had one or two go-to moves, and if he got countered, he had nothing. So I think that's pretty much the summary of why it didn't work out here.
You talk about getting that big that can kind of solidify as a playmaking creator, if you will. Now, obviously, DeAndre Ayton is not necessarily a creator, but he has improved in that like short roll. He's continuing to get better in that regards and finding guys, shooters out of going inside out, if you will. And then obviously he's also improving with his jumper as well. Do you think the Mavs will probably try to go all in on DeAndre this offseason, obviously being that it's looking like at least like his days with the Suns are over?
Yeah, I think like outside of – I really do think front court creator is not the first need. I think it's just something that will put him over the top eventually. The biggest need was exposed in the Warriors series, and in the first two games of the Suns series, really, which was they have no big man. Like they have one big man who should be playing NBA rotation minutes, and that is Maxi Kleber. You can't just win with one big. So yes, they should have interest. I know for a fact in 2018, the front office back then had Ayton number one. Obviously in the media stuff, they'll tell you Luka is always our number one. Every team says that. In the top five, they're like, oh, this is our number one player. It's just, it's kind of antics. At that point, it's just got good PR. But I know they did love Ayton. So I wonder if Cuban and some of the scouts that are still there and all that, they have an influence enough to get him. The problem is you probably have to dump Tim Hardaway, which is very hard considering I think he has 3 or 4 more years left on a pretty high contract. And on top of that, I don't think you can keep Brunson and get Ayton. Maybe my cap math is off, but I think that's going to be a tough obstacle. And if it came down to Ayton or Brunson, there's a decent chance I choose Brunson just because of the lack of creation on the team.
Is someone like maybe Gobert an option to trade for as well? I mean, I don't think he really fits as a creator, but he's still a very impactful player. Is he someone that would be of interest to Dallas?
Oh yeah. No matter what, I know there was some PR stuff said, like, or not really just PR, just when Kidd in the post-game press conferences was talking about Gobert kind of, being soft or whatever he said, like, yeah, that stuff lasts, but also, let's be real, if he was on the Mavs, you have the best rim protector in the league. And actually, David Locke of Locked On Jazz, and he's a radio broadcaster for the Jazz, said something interesting. If you're a top 5 rim protecting team, almost every year those teams win 50 games. So just looking at the Mavs, they barely scraped 50 wins this year without a rim protector. And I can't imagine how good they'd be. I think they would be in the running for 60 games won. And you look at just what Rudy Gobert did this last year, 15, 16 points a game on 71% shooting. And that was with Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, who neither of them liked passing to Gobert that much. I don't think Luka holds a grudge, considering he still passed to Porzingis a lot, even though they didn't get along that well at the end. I can't imagine. I think Gobert could score even more on the same efficiency. Not like 20 or something, but he could climb up to 16, 17 points per game. I think it's an elite fit. That's honestly a dream for me.
How about guys like Yusuf Nurkic or even Mo Bamba? I mean, those probably helps you keep Brunson, like the type of contracts you would have to go for them. Because obviously Rudy Gobert's contract is tough to trade for as well. It's such a massive contract that you're essentially you'll have two like not supermax, but like you have obviously Luka and the supermax, but then Gobert on the max as well. Then it kind of makes it hard to keep Brunson potentially. Again, I'm not a big cap guy either, so I guess I shouldn't for sure say that. But maybe if you feel that it would probably be hard to keep Brunson, getting Ayton, probably similarly with Gobert. But yeah, I mean, like Mo Bamba and then Yusuf Nurkic. Actually, Nurkic has a lot of injury concerns in the past, but if you're trying to be cost effective, guys that can kind of do certain things that you're looking for, those two names are really interesting to look at as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nurkic. The injuries obviously are a little bit scary, but you look at a guy who he can defend the paint, he can shoot mid-range shots, and I think he's a pretty creative passer. I think that would help a lot. I would take him. Probably needs to be cheap, and you need to get another center with him. He can't be your only big man signing on the offseason, so that would be kind of something to worry about. But ultimately, I would take him. Mo Bamba, I'm not big on him. Obviously, I'm big with the Magic too, and I worry about his game really ever sticking in the NBA. Yes, his tools, like as a stretch 5 who can block shots, is valuable, but everything for me that I've seen with him, just it all has to be handed to him on a silver platter pretty much. Like he can't create his own looks in any way offensively. He doesn't really do anything advanced on the defensive end. Guys are just reckless towards him, and then ta-da, you got a block. So I worry about him. However, if there was one guard to really maximize his game, it's probably Luka. And especially with this defense that was top 5 in the NBA this year, Dallas could definitely make him useful. They're one of the few spots that could use him as a reclamation project. Just not my first choice.
Let me go back to Jalen Brunson. He's been really good, and he's been a hell of a steal for the Dallas Mavericks and just fits with Luka so well. And we saw him have a really good postseason. He's going to get a pretty good contract from Dallas. How good do you think he can become in this league? Like, I mean, this season he's coming off 50% from the field, 37% from 3, and about 16 a game. Are we talking about a potentially like an all-star level player one day? Like, what do you think his ceiling is ultimately?
I don't think it's all-star, but I think it's better than what it is now. You look at how the free throw percentage has gotten so much better over the last 3 years, and with that, his 3-point percentage has been better every year since his rookie year. So I think the shooting upside is legit. He shot 40% last year, 37% this year. I think he can stay around there. The thing that's a little bit hidden is those assist numbers. When you're playing next to Luka and also Dinwiddie, when you're kind of in a stacked guard front court, you have a ball dominant guard, your assists are obviously going to be deflated. It's his first year over 4 assists per game. He pretty much had 5, just rounding up from 4.8. And I think if he were to go to a team, say the Knicks, obviously Julius Randle's a little bit ball dominant, but he would be the pure second option in a little bit different of a way. I think he could clear 5 by a lot. He could probably touch 6 assists a game with the same shooting and efficiency. So I think if you look at like a 17-6 guy on 50% shooting, that is a borderline all-star.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like him. Like, obviously, biases are there because he's a Illinois product, Rockford product, or Chicago actually, isn't he?
Yeah.
I always confuse him and then Fred VanVleet for some reason. I don't know why. And actually, that's probably an interesting comparison, just because both of them came out from like older rookies, because they were like went under the radar. So I think that's why I was confused, both of them. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes an all-star. Like, he's only 25 right now. He'll be 26. Nowadays I feel like development curves are just so weird. Like, guys are continuing to develop, and like when they're 27, 28 years old and getting better and better and better still. So like, I feel like a lot of teams have done so much better with how they're developing players. So I wouldn't be surprised personally if he got an all-star nod here or there. At some point, just because, like I said, the things that he was doing in the playoffs in that first time, I feel like that was kind of like a breakout moment for him.
Yeah, and especially if you look at, like I said, if that Jazz trade happens and they got Gobert and keep Brunson, you're looking at a team that wins probably. I mean, I really don't think it's a stretch to say they win 60 games. I mean, this year the Mavs won 52. It's only an 8-game improvement. When you're a 60-win team, you're up for 2 or 3 all-star bids. Yeah, Gobert's probably in front of him, but if the Mavs are that good and he's that good, they could be a 3-team bid. And that would be how Brunson gets an all-star nod.
Yeah, I think Salim makes a good point and it's really interesting to see, but like these older, like upperclassmen now, I feel like are coming into the NBA, and you can't just like disregard them as low ceiling anymore. Like guys like, like Brunson was a guy that slipped to the second round, but I mean, it's not like he was, like the 50th pick or something like that, but like just kind of like right at the top of the second round. But he's had a lot more upside than I think people imagine. And to me, he's like one of the more fascinating like developments in the league, because like, yeah, I could see him becoming an all-star, and like he showed flashes of it against Golden State. And at the same time, like if he did leave Dallas, like I think his ceiling would go up even a little bit more. But ultimately, I feel like Dallas is just probably the best fit for him, because he just fits so well next to Luka and kind of gives them someone who can be either like a number 3 or sometimes like even a number 2 on the right night when he's hot. So if they kind of get some of that, like what he did in some games against Golden State out of him, like really like his potential going forward. I wanted to ask you too about like the coaching with Dallas. Jason Kidd got a lot of props this postseason for what he did with Dallas. And I think we go back a year ago and a lot of people didn't really like that hire coming off Rick Carlisle. What have you thought about Jason Kidd in his first season of Dallas?
Yeah, I did a 180. I was one of those people. I thought the coaching mattered, the skill mattered, but after about a week, I kind of turned and I was like, it's an addition by subtraction. They clearly didn't mesh with him. When you lose the locker room, you could be the greatest coach. I mean, if Red Auerbach or something, or Phil Jackson lost the locker room, you still lost the locker room and you're in a tough situation. So ultimately, it was the right move. What really impressed me was the setup that Jason Kidd had. You look at Sean Sweeney, who used to be with the Pistons as his defensive coordinator pretty much, and Igor, who I'm not even going to try and botch his last name, but the former Suns coach. He was the offensive coordinator. They did a great job of surrounding Jason Kidd. They went exactly how the Lakers surrounded Frank Vogel, including Jason Kidd, and look what happened right after he left. So I think Jason Kidd has a great system in place, and ultimately everybody's bought in, and the system works. It's really good. Yeah, my biggest issue beyond really even Carlisle was good X's and O's. Jason Kidd's best play before coming into the Dallas job was spilling a beer to get a timeout. And my bigger issue though was, beyond that, there's some X's and O's issues. He had some character concerns, obviously, with the domestic violence, and this is an organization that continually, it's every 6 months, it feels like, is popping up with something of not treating women right, all this terrible workplace, just sexual harassment, workplace harassment, things like that. And my issue was that was not the right person you need to be bringing in when that's the picture you've been putting out for 2 years. So, but ultimately on the court, I think he's done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see if, like, maybe he's learned as a coach itself. Like, for me, I was definitely one of the people that didn't like it because of the off court stuff. But it is what it is at this point. But yeah, I'm looking at him as far as an X's and O's coach, see if he can develop in that regard as far as getting better, maybe learning from being on the bench with some other coaches. I mean, people don't want to say coaches can develop too, and maybe that's something that Jason Kidd has done as a coach.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The development in coaches, people think only players develop, but coaches develop too. There's a lot to learn in the game.
Yeah, it seems like the Lakers originally really wanted Kidd as their head coach before they hired Vogel. So maybe even the Lakers kind of saw something different in Kidd as well when they made sure to keep him on as assistant coach. And so far, Kidd has looked really good as a coach, and it'll be interesting to watch going forward. Switching gears a little bit into some Bulls talk. I don't know how legitimate this rumor was, and me and Salim were talking about it as well, but we were talking about how there's been some rumors about Zach LaVine being linked with the Dallas Mavericks. I'm no cap guru as well, so I don't know how possible it is to do that and for them to do other things or whatever. But what do you think about some of those rumors with Zach LaVine in Dallas?
Anybody can be interested at anyone at any point. The Mavs also are a team that historically has been high level interest with players, only to be used as leverage. And let's be real, it's going to happen again. The Mavs have had, I could name an entire laundry list over the last 10 years. The only one that really wasn't the case was Darren Williams. He wanted to be here. Mark Cuban was just an idiot about how he handled that situation, and he acknowledges that. But I worry it's just another leverage issue. The only thing is the Mavs are interested. But of course, Zach LaVine's an all-star and the Mavs need an all-star. Who's not going to be interested in Zach LaVine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I take this as I have no doubt that these teams, that the Mavs, the Lakers, I think the Hawks were mentioned, and there was another team I can't remember off the top of my head that was interested as well. I have no doubt that those teams are interested in Zach LaVine. Everyone's interested in getting an all-star, like you said, Rich. I just think also these teams are being used as leverage. As I mentioned before, we have a reputation as an ownership group to be stingy and not pay what we should be paying as far as cap and everything. We've battled with players in the past about paying them a certain amount. I think Derrick Rose was the only player that they gave the full year max to without any hesitation. I think before that, they've always negotiated with players. They negotiated with Zach before his injury. I mean, to their credit, it made sense because he was coming off that knee injury situation. But yeah, coming into here, it's just Clutch wants to make sure that ownership and the Bulls just come out, give him the 5-year max, and they're putting the pressure on that. So that's honestly is the way I see it. And the rumor out today was that the Bulls are going to be set to offer Zach the 5-year max. I still won't be surprised if Zach goes out and just visits with a few teams. We'll see how that turns out. Because I also think about this is his first time being a free agent as a star. Mm-hmm. A lot of these guys to get the wine and dine. Come on over. We'll show you a good time, and then you can make a decision if you want. And then obviously those guys end up staying with their teams. I remember with Carmelo a few years back, the Bulls and all these other teams showed him around and things like that. And then he ended up obviously staying with the Knicks. So in the end, like I said, if the Bulls offer him the 5-year max, long answer short, I think he's staying in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a good point with free agency that a lot of players still just want to, do their due diligence and talk to teams just to see what's out there, just to see how other teams are thinking. Maybe there is a team that actually has a plan, a better plan than the Bulls. So it's just you never know these things unless you talk to those teams, and it might be something that piques your interest here and there. But ultimately, I do expect Zach LaVine to stay with the Bulls, especially when they offer that full 5-year max. Rich, what did you think of Zach LaVine this season? He was an all-star again, and he played a really crucial part in this team's turnaround, considering the last 3 or 4 years of what they've been through. And even though he was a number 2 option, DeMar DeRozan, but he still looked good. He still put up like his usual numbers. What did you think of what he did this season?
Yeah, some of the numbers, obviously, they decreased. That's going to happen when you add Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan. I think it was honestly for the better. Obviously, and his efficiency really dropped too. But I think that might have had to do with just the league as a whole. The shooting dropped with 1 less attempt from 3 per game, dropped 3% from 3. Overall field goal percentage dropped from really elite. I don't know how this didn't get talked about more last year, but 27 points a game, 51%, down to 24 on 48. Like, I think he's fine. I don't think the numbers really are scary that he drops or anything. I think it was just pretty much more of the same. I think this is what we're going to see. This is his prime for now 3 years, pretty much since the 2019-20 season. He's been the same player, 25 points a game, near 50% shooting almost any given year. And he's going to be efficient. He's going to score from all 3 levels, and he's going to pass. I think he's just kind of more of the same, different volume.
Yeah, I think like this past season too, there was a lot of injury thing. He was banged up all season. He started out he had a hand injury on his like non-shooting thumb, but still, even on your non-shooting thumb, you still need to be able to like have good ball placement and things like that when you're shooting the ball. So that definitely hurt him. And then as the season went on, that left knee started acting up again. And obviously we're finding out he had off-season knee surgery that he just completed that went well, and he's going to have full recovery on. But yeah, all those things kind of played into it. And when you consider like he went through all that and the season that he still had is like, man, this kid is really good. Like, why are people so hesitant to not want to pay him his max? It's just a bizarre thing. Like, you look at a guy that's basically injured all year and he still has an all-star season, and you're sitting here saying, I don't know if I want to max this guy out. So when he's healthy, we know what he is. So why not just keep that guy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the criticism I've seen from people just continues to boggle me, especially after we already went through what we went through with Jimmy Butler. It's just like, you can't just let players like this just walk for nothing. Like, you have to have something formidable to replace them with, or you're getting worse without really getting anything. So like letting Zach walk, we talked about the basketball ramifications of it, but like you said, this team is notorious in their treatment of players in negotiations. So it would just look bad on the team, and it would look like same old Bulls ownership. It's just not the type of vibes that you really want to, bring back, especially when you have all of this goodwill that's been earned by this new front office with Karnisovas and Eversley. So, it's just hopefully I have pretty good faith that they're going to keep Zach LaVine. Rich, what do you think the Bulls can realistically do to take another step in the Eastern Conference, assuming they do bring back Zach LaVine? This team, they looked really good for the first half of the season. As we know, when they were healthy, they were one of the better teams in the league. But their second half of the season was just a complete 180 from what they were doing in the first half of a season. They just dropped off across the board, and it's obviously injuries and other things played a factor in that, but this team is still clearly missing some pieces that can really put them in the tier with some of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. So what do you think they can really do to kind of take that next step this offseason?
Yeah, I think part of it is just have a healthy team. Patrick Williams didn't play a lot of the year. I think that's something a lot of people miss. And even when he's young, even when he's played, though, I think he's been pretty good, especially this year. I mean, he had some crazy shooting numbers. And I don't think it was like, obviously the small sample size, but I don't think it was like some extreme overachievement. I think he's actually a good shooter. And I think having him just develop, have a full healthy offseason and be healthy for a season, they'd see a lot of changes. In terms of the changes they do need to make, they need to add another big man that can be a role threat, especially in the air. You have like Vucevic and Derek Jones, but they're not like the pieces you need for that. I think if you got somebody who could really be somebody that pops and rolls at a high level, like is athletic and just pops, even to the mid range, I think that does a lot. So getting someone like that, whether it's even a power forward or center, doesn't have to be a true center. I think that would be big. And then on defense, I mean, there's a lot of defensive room to grow. I think off-ball defense, you could see a lot. I think they gave up a lot of backdoor cuts way too often, and also even just gave up open threes because they collapsed wrong. So I think getting just smarter defenders and a healthy team would do a lot.
Yeah, the big thing for the Bulls has been, or for AK has been, moves on the margin. That he's had, obviously a couple of good moves on the margin, like keeping
Javonte was a good move.
Javonte Green, obviously finding Io in the second round. Another one or two moves that he's done, but for the most part, he's had a lot of misses. I would say I look at, like, we cut Max Strus as an example, who would have been like really good to have this season. A guy that can stretch the floor, has ability to help out in that regards. Just overall, there's little moves like that I feel like if he can just improve on and get better at, that can solidify in a long season, that can help you win games on nights that you're shorthanded and you're just other guys are banged up.
And they have a first round pick this year, so they'll be able to at least add someone from a quality draft to do it. Rich, is there anyone that you think that the Bulls could really add through a draft that maybe could see playing time next season for a team that's kind of looking to compete right now?
I think there's two guys that fall right in the range of where the Bulls are. I think they're personally in a great spot because this draft is weird. The general overview I could give is nobody knows what's going to happen outside of probably the consensus top the consensus top two guys. Two of the top three would go top two. Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren. After that, it's anything goes. There's Shaedon Sharpe is an absolute unknown. Nobody knows what's going to happen with Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. Then you get down the line, there's going to be a lot of weird picks that just sprinkle in, guys that are ranked 20s on a lot of boards that go top 10. So for me, the two picks I like the most with the Bulls, Kendall Brown out of Baylor. I think when you look at, I know for a fact there was some point guard chemistry issues with him and Jeremy Sohan. Their point guards just that team had chemistry issues. That's why they lost round 2 to North Carolina. They didn't even make it out of the first weekend. And Kendall Brown, if you look at his first 10 games, was elite. He was averaging double-digit points on 72% shooting and playing great defense, the best cutter in the draft, in my opinion. And lights out defense, can guard 1 through 5 with the athleticism and size. He's somebody I would strongly consider. And then also you look at Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, who he's probably got more star upside than Kendall Brown. Kendall Brown is going to be a very good player. I just don't know if he can be a star compared to Jalen, because Jalen has a lot more self-creation and scoring, and he has that star mold of just really long, really athletic, saucy with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's flashy, he can create for himself, create for others, and he can also defend. So he does everything. Those are two guys I could see Chicago swinging for, and both year one impact players.
Mm.
You talk about Kendall Brown's shooting. Do you think, I've seen some people mention his form is a concern. Do you think that's a concern? Do you think he needs to maybe adjust it for the NBA level to continue to, be a good shooter?
Yeah, I don't think his form is look, it's not good, but it's also not something that it's completely unfixable. I think Jeremy Sohan has a lot more issues than him as a shooter, and Sohan's the draft darling of the year because Sohan can play 1 through 5 and such. But with Kendall Brown, his free throw percentage is a lot better. I think he has real touch. He just needs to kind of smoothen out his shot and honestly just get some reps. He'll be fine in that way. I think if you leave him in the corners, he'll make you pay.
Is there anyone in this draft that you think the Bulls could realistically move up for? Maybe packaging 18 with the Portland pick. Maybe, I don't know who else they would throw in, if they would throw in a player. But is there, how far do you think they could move up? And is there someone that they could move up for that makes sense?
I think they can move into the lottery. I don't think the gap is very far off. if they really wanted to get somebody, maybe they could move back with like Charlotte or something. Although I don't know how much Charlotte wants to do this, but they could get one of two players that I think might be right at the 15 or 13 slot. Charlotte has both of those picks. And that's Mark Williams at center. He would be one of those guys that I talked about where he stops a lot of those cutting actions. I think he makes up for some of the off-ball woes defensively, and then an explosive finisher at the rim. And then Ousmane Dieng from the New Zealand Breakers. He's a French wing, kind of no position. He's 6'9", just does everything. Stalwart on defense, can create, and could spot up shoot. He had a tale of 2 seasons, averaged 4 points a game on like 28% shooting, very low mid-20s for the first 11 games. After that, he was like 13 points a game on 48% shooting. So those are two guys I could see them moving up for.
Man,
how about a guy like Benedict Mathurin? Because the Bulls supposedly met with him. So that I found that interesting, and I thought he was probably like a top 7-ish player, right, in this draft, maybe 7, 10. In that range, I would think. Well, how much do you think they have to give up to move up to get a guy like him? As far as I said, I find it interesting that they met with him.
Yeah, I think he's safely a top 10 pick. So you would have to trade with Washington, who I don't think they should. They're in a weird situation. Yes, they could. They should trade. They should probably trade up because of the weird situation they're in, where they're in a desperate timeline to save the Bradley Beal era. And Benedict Mathurin is not only a safe player now, but also a very good player going forward. So I think they're going to be the team you either have to trade with or jump. They could also benefit from gaining assets and moving back because of the drop-off. Say Benedict Mathurin is gone. There's a good chance that they're not going to be able to get somebody from that top 8. And if that's the case, that next tier goes like at the 10th pick to like the 20th pick, you're not going to see much of a change. I think you're going to see pretty... the 11th pick will probably be good as good as the 20th pick. So I think they're the team you either have to trade with or beat to get Mathurin.
How would you like his fit with the Bulls? Like, as far as, because I watched some of the NCAA and I was just his length and everything. Like, man, I would love to have a guy like this on the Bulls.
Yeah, with Mathurin, I think he fits everywhere. You look at a guy who can defend at an ideal level, can shoot, and has a little bit of creation upside. That's really the thing that'll unlock the rest of his game. And he's really athletic. I think his ability to score at the rim will be very easy because of his first step. If you close out on his jump shot, he's going to make you pay at the rim.
Man, I would really like Mark Williams. Man, I think Mark Williams is going to be a really, really good defensive player in the NBA. And he's just got a really good rim running skill set, really good athlete, just going to be a hell of a defensive maker. What do you think about Terry Eason from LSU? I'm looking on Tankathon, and he's mocked at 15 to Charlotte, but I've heard his name mentioned a lot, and a bunch of people really like him as someone either who goes in late lottery or just outside of it. But what do you think of his game?
Yeah, I have mixed thoughts. I think he's a top 10 talent. His basketball IQ needs a lot of work. He needs to get better at just fitting in with the scheme and learning just defense, especially. So he's got to have a little bit of a learning curve. I think he's a very good talent to gamble on if you're just looking at, hey, this guy is very good at the game of basketball. He's not a complex player. He's just a very simple player in a free flow offense and defense. That's okay if the Bulls want to go that route occasionally, but if you're trying to run set defenses, advanced defenses where it's all right, switch if this happens and this, and it's very just complicated, he's not going to be your guy.
Yeah, this draft overall seems to be, like you said, the top 5 or maybe even 6 seems to be kind of set, but outside of that, there could be a lot of unpredictability. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls maneuver outside of that, if they decide to move up or if they really decide to stay where they're at. What is your overall opinion? If we're looking strictly at the top 5 or so, how do you see that going, and which players do you have the most faith in that are going to really pan out in that group?
You said in the top 5?
Yeah, so we're talking about Holmgren, Smith, Banchero, Ivy, Sharp. I don't know if Murray might go top 5 instead, but
yeah,
the players in those group, how do you see that playing out on draft night, and who do you have the most faith in terms of really reaching their upside?
Well, I think the safest player is Jabari Smith. He is the easiest upside to achieve as a 6'10", 3-and-D guy. There's really only one 3-and-D guy that big in the league, and that's Maxi Kleber. And he is literally only spot up shooting and only almost protecting the rim, being a defender. You look at Jabari Smith, who is a lot better on both ends, can hit off of fakes and can hit off the dribble in any capacity. Maxi cannot. And he can also create a little bit better. So you look at the impact Jabari would have, I think that's an all-star. Very easy path. Chet has the highest upside. I think he's it's nuts though, because yes, he's skinny, but also if you look at what he does, it translates so clearly. A stretch big who can pass and shoot is a very good player. So I think the whole top three, I would say also including Paolo, I just, a guy that can score at his size, I don't want to overthink that. Those three are all going to stick. It's probably the safest top three that I can remember. Yes, Chet may be the best candidate to bust, but if you even get two of the top three, it's pretty good. And then Jaden Ivey probably hits. I just have a hard time seeing him not. He has the most pros of any player I've listed on my scouting reports. And Shaedon Sharpe's a massive mystery. I could see him going both ways. But I would want a top three pick. If you're trying to trade in that top five, if you're at five, if you're trading for five, it's just not really worth it. Number 5 versus number 9, 10, it's not a major drop off.
So if you're Orlando, you're taking Chet number 1.
Yes, because the way I look at it is I don't want them to do what Oklahoma City is doing, even though it feels worse what Oklahoma City is doing, but I don't want them to go all in on another year of tanking. I think they need to kind of get back there while getting their superstar upside player, and Chet is that player. And on top of that, if they luck into another number 1 pick and they get Victor Wembanyama next year, then Chet can fit with them. They're actually very easy to fit together, and that's a good problem. I think ultimately, though, the Magic, who have been in, at best, mediocrity the last 10 years, they need to get a chance out of it. A superstar center that Chet could be is worth investing in, even if you miss.
Mm-hmm.
One last question as far as later round talent is Nikola Jovic. What are your thoughts on him? I've seen a lot of mixed stuff. There's people that really love him, and then there's people that see he has interesting tools, but they're really concerned with his limitations. So what are your thoughts as far as who type of player he is, and maybe the Bulls can maybe look at him as well?
He's really interesting. I love his talent. I've had him top 10 for most of the year. And then I heard some things about his work ethic that, not necessarily work ethic, just some of his habits that have come since he's come across to the States earlier this month. And it's been a bit of a turnoff. There are flaws in his game, probably one of the worst defenders in the class. I can overlook it. He's 6'11". I have no issue with that. Fine. He'll have some way to make up for size, but very slow laterally. And also, he can't finish in the rim. He's pretty much a perimeter player only at 6'11". But when you're 6'11", you could be a small ball 5 in that way. He can run pick and rolls. He can spot up. He can create his own 3. And I think it's really valuable. All he has to do is literally translate that. Be a pick and roll ball handler and create your own 3-point shot and hit it, because his jump shot form is beautiful. You'll probably translate. How good he can be is purely up to those habits that he builds as a young player, though.
Who were you looking at the Mavericks having some interest in with their pick at 26?
Well, I hope they trade it, just because I hope they trade back to the 30s. My dream, I hate when the Magic and Mavs actually do stuff together because it puts me in this weird pickle. But I actually want that to happen. I want them to take 32 and 35 from the Magic because, one, the Magic don't need 2 second-rounders. And also the Magic front office, since taking over in 2017, has used 2 second-rounders, I think, maybe 3. I know Wessel Wundu, what's his name, Melvin Frazier, and one other guy who I'm blanking on. And they're all been high picks in the 30s. In the 30s and 20s don't have much of a difference of a hit rate. So I think when you look at the Mavs, they don't want a guaranteed contract. Probably they're always, Mark Cuban has always done this. In 2013, notoriously, he chose to save a little bit of cap space by moving back a few, 2 or 3 picks instead of picking Giannis. So I think it benefits both. The Magic can get just their 1 first-round player they want. The Mavs can get their 2 non-guaranteed guys, or even trade out of that second one and get somebody on a really cheap deal at good value. They've already hit it the low 30s once. Why not do it again? They did it with Brunson in 2018. So I think I have faith in them, even though it's a whole new front office, to do it again.
Is there any player that's in the top 10 that you're kind of iffy about overall? maybe you think they're a little overhyped, or maybe you just don't really see them panning out in the NBA. Like their game just isn't really a good fit.
Yeah, like the consensus top 10, or I'm assuming my top 10 probably wouldn't have that.
Yeah, so maybe like somewhere in your top 10.
Yeah, I realized after I started talking, I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that. But the guy who, I'll go back, I kind of hinted at it earlier. Yes, he could be the next Draymond. He also could be Jarrett Culver, bigger Jarrett Culver in a way, and that's Jeremy Sohan. I worry about him. I think he has a serious fatal flaw that he cannot shoot right now. But I feel like this is a complete guesstimate, but like at least a quarter of his made threes, it feels like were bank threes. And when that's the case, that's not very good. His free throw percentage is terrible. His 3-point percentage is terrible. I worry about if teams just sagged off of him. He could be like a Draymond. I think the realistic best route is being that Warriors death lineup Iguodala. And that's a good player. But if he goes to, I don't know, say the Wizards with that, is that really that impactful of a player? I don't know. You need that for a title contending team. Yes, that works. But when you're a team that's so far away, what are you getting as your value? Good defender, good playmaker. And in theory, he can play 1 through 5. But if you can't shoot, are you really much of a wing? Like, I think there's a lot of holes in the argument for him in that way. It used to be Dyson Daniels, and I warmed up to him. But Jeremy Sohan, somebody I worry about.
It seems like I can't even really get a feel for him, because I feel like there's a lot of people who really like him, but then there's some people who are kind of concerned about him. But like AJ Griffin, I don't know. Like I could definitely see the upside with him, but I think a lot of people talked about his defense, and they have just kind of been like really worried that he's just not going to be able, like he's going to be really poor defensively and not going to be like so great offensively to make up for it. But like, do you think he's kind of like in that same line of people who you have some concern with, or are you kind of like a little higher on him?
Yeah. With AJ, I think you summed it up. That first sentence of I don't have a feel on him is a lot of these players are tough to evaluate. That's what makes this draft kind of not that good, in my opinion, is it's like, okay, what do we do with these guys? And when that's the case, I'm selling. So for me with AJ, he was a top. I mean, there were things I remember in 2020, late 2020, there were people who were saying like, let's rank the top high school prospects in the world right now, or under draft eligible prospects, excuse me. And like, this is when basketball was shut down. And people are like, look, if AJ Griffin declared today, he'd be a top 5 prospect. Like, he is that good. And then he got injured, really barely played after that. So for me, you look at somebody who's so athletic, he's built, he has an NBA frame, doesn't have to ever go hit the weight room more than the basketball court, which is a very good development for him. I don't think NBA teams really need to focus on that. Great shooter, despite the ridiculously long base. It feels like half the time he's almost doing splits, but it works. And then on defense, like I said, I think once he gets healthier and the strength, that combination is going to do a lot for him. He's had plays where he navigates screens. He knows what he's doing. The defensive production this year was terrible. I just don't know how much of it was because of the injury or how much of it is actually he won't ever be a good defender. I think I would gamble on him turning from a bad defender to an actually positive defender. And if that's the case, he's probably going to be near a star upside.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about AJ Griffin earlier in the year, we were saying at times how, like, at least size-wise and maybe like athletic-wise and just kind of like movement-wise, like he kind of looks like Jimmy Butler a little bit, even down to like, we were just laughing about it, the way that his jersey just falls out all of the time during games. But he's definitely going to be like one of the more interesting players, I think, to see if his upside pans out. Rich, thank you so much for joining us again on Bulls Go. We love talking to you. Can you let our listeners know what you're working on right now, and again, where they can find you at on social media?
Yeah, at Mavs Draft is the hub. Pretty much anything I post or do goes through there every day from here on out, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually only for like 4 weeks, is going to be scouting reports, mock drafts. Me and Bryce Simon from Motor City Hoops, we're doing video scouting reports, written scouting reports on every player in my top 100. And Learn to Tackle. We're going to have full in-depth scouting reports, shot charts, videos, all of it for the next month. And then also I do Locked On NBA Big Board, where I'm on every Tuesday, but the whole show is just incredible. It's a very qualified group. Rafael Barlow that guy should be in consideration to take over Mike Schmitz's job at ESPN. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. We're very lucky to have him. It's a great show, so give it a listen.
All right. Yeah, check that out, man. Again, thank you so much to Rich for dropping by and blessing us with some draft knowledge and, of course, some really good knowledge about the Dallas Mavericks and the Bulls. Salim, you got any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, thanks to Rich, obviously, as always, for joining us. My final thought, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of these playoffs go. Again, I'm hoping Warriors Heat, but this Boston's Heat series has been really weird. So that Game 7 can go bonkers for all we know. And then we'll be interested to see what else rumors pop up for the Bulls as we get closer to the draft. Will AK surprise us again with a weird trade that we didn't think about that could happen on draft day? Maybe he's not looking to add another young player. Maybe he's looking to add a more established vet. I've always talked about a guy like Kuzma. I would love to add him. I don't know how that's possible, obviously, for the Bulls, but that's another player I was always thought about, that they should target. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I said, the Bulls need to get more players that they can rely on especially when teams double down, triple down, trap Zach and DeMar at open threes. So yeah, we'll see how that happens. But yeah, looking forward to the rest of the playoffs and seeing what other rumors pop up.
Absolutely, yeah. So hopefully we'll probably get a good Game 7 tomorrow, and we'll see how the NBA Finals goes between the Warriors and the winner of tomorrow night's game. And we'll always be on the lookout for more Bulls rumors that are going to get people going in between free agency. But that concludes today's episode of Bulls Gold. As always, you can catch us on the Barroom Network. Check out our past shows wherever you get your podcast. And for Salim Sudawala, I'm Edward Schuler. This has been Bulls Gold, and we will catch you next time, Bulls fans.